When I started this channel, it was mainly reserved just for the magic and spiritual beliefs of the Norse world. And a lot of new people in the past 6 months have joined the channel just for kind of Viking history, and that's totally cool. I will do videos on Viking history, but you guys are gonna have to listen to some of my bullshit sometimes. So today we're speaking about bravery. The reason I even speak about history, like I said, that was not the main point of this channel. The reason I'm starting to do videos about history more now is not just for people's entertainment. History is not there just simply to entertain us. History is there to teach us things so we don't make the same mistakes and so that we can, make the right decisions so we don't have to suffer the same bad consequences as what happened previously. So this is a bit of a rant, but there's also some awesome history here. Speaking about the bravest Viking who ever lived, in my opinion, because it's so important. Bravery, specifically in the Norse and the whole Germanic world, was such a central focus of the culture. Brave acts were not only how you got a good reputation and honor, but there was also a spiritual element towards bravery. And brave acts was how you developed your hamingja. That was one way to do it, basically the Norse version of good karma. We also even have some gods that are symbolic, kind of even personifications of the spirit of bravery. So, bravery. Many modern people have such a skewed and disturbed understanding of what it is, Winning battles and dominating others does not make you brave. Some war cultures were mistakenly called brave for this, and every once in a while I see some really disturbing comments below in the comment section of my videos, and people still don't understand that. You are not brave. A warrior culture or an army or whatever is not brave if they stood up with thousands of people and slaughtered a weaker force like that. That is not bravery. Bravery is standing up in the battles that you weren't supposed to win, when you're a few hundred people going against a few thousand. That is what bravery is about. But even then, yes, the 300 Spartans were very brave, or any stories like that going up against 1,000,000 Persians. But even them, they're standing there fighting, being brave with 300 of their other very close friends and family and brothers. And we have actually many stories of brave Vikings like this that had an army of a few dozen men standing up against a few hundred men. But even still, remember, they were standing there with dozens of their very close friends and family and warriors by their side. True bravery is standing up when you are alone, defeated, and everyone around you has surrendered and turned into a coward, and there is no bravery left. That one person that is still left being brave is the bravest one. So this is the one I'm going to speak about today. In my opinion, the bravest Viking of all time was King Hrårek, a small king of an area in Norway called Hedmark, land of the pagans. And this is the time of Saint Olav, actually. Same story as always at the time. Olav comes in and he bribes and cheats his way into being accepted as a unified king, decides to force his beliefs on others and kill and torture those who want to remain pagan. I'm not saying anything bad about Christians. I never have and never will. Remember, my favorite king ever in history was a Christian, King Håkon the Good. But there were many bad ones too, and King Olav was one of them, and he wanted to destroy anyone who didn't believe what he wanted them to believe. Now, at the start, there were thousands of Norwegians who stood up against this forced Christianization for many years, but eventually people started to realize that it was not worth it to keep fighting and losing to King Olav, and most people, at least on paper, converted to Christianity in Norway. But there were a few kings in Norway who remained strong, and King Hrårek was one of them, and he organized plan with all the other pagan chieftains, and he said, okay, we need to stand up to King Olav. He's torturing and killing people who want religious freedom, and we have to stop it. But we have to stand up to him now before he gets too strong and we can't handle him. And we all have to swear an oath together that we will meet him in battle, because we'll not be able to meet him unless all of us stick together. And the other smaller kings, they were a bit scared at first and they didn't want to fight, but eventually King Hrårek convinced them, and they all swore an oath at the feasting hall to fight against King Olav together. But a traitor was amongst them, Kjetil of Ringanes. I say these names just so you guys know who the traitors and the good people were in history. Kjetil went to King Olav and he told him the smaller kings were plotting against him. So Olav takes his whole army, sneaks up in the night and surrounds the smaller kings' halls while they were sleeping, and he took them prisoner. Now, some of them he let free, some of them he tortured and banished, some of them he killed. But King Hrårek was too powerful and bold, and King Olav didn't want to kill a king that was so powerful, and he was also a distant relative of his, so it would have caused an uprising if he killed him. So Olav basically decided to take King Hrårek, gouge out his eyes, and force him to live with him because he could not be trusted to be on his own. The story's just starting, by the way, getting to the good part soon. But Olav treated Hrårek actually pretty well after he gouged out his eyes, that is, and took his kingdom. He ordered his servants to basically look over him, dress him well, give him what he needed. He also sat King Hrårek beside him on the throne, keeping the defeated king at his side like a pet. But did King Hrårek lose his bravery and his war spirit because of all of this? No, of course not. This was the bravest Viking that ever lived, remember. Whenever someone talked to him, he did nothing but talk shit back. He was an old angry man talking shit. He was blind and was mean to everybody. And whenever he got a chance to get away from the palace, he would beat the crap out of his king's servants so that none of them wanted to work for him anymore. And he always tried to get away, even though he was blind still, remember. King Olav eventually put a family member of King Hrårek to take care of him, and it was at that time Hrårek spoke of plans to take revenge. He was talking shit to all the people around him, like, how dare you cowards, look at what King Olav has done to our people, and you all just sat there and did nothing. I'm blind and disabled, and I'm still doing more than you. And he spoke of plans to kill King Olav in his sleep, just as Olav had ambushed all of them in their sleep. And he says, just let me at him, and I will kill him. Look, a blind man has more courage than all of you. This is what I'm talking about, bravery right here. The one who got the worst punishment of all, he's still the one who showed the most bravery of all. But eventually, Hrårek did convince someone to help him kill King Olav in his sleep, but that guy ended up being a coward too and backed out of it when he actually got in front of the king in his bedroom at night. Even then, that still did not kill King Hrårek's spirits. He was known as a joker too, talking shit, making fun of everybody at the feasting hall, talking shit to everyone in the palace, and he would be buying people drinks all the time, having a party, getting drunk. One day, he put some special herbs in the drinks, and he got everyone passed out drunk and managed to escape with a pagan Finnish man who he befriended. He was apprehended and brought back the next morning, but he managed to kill many of King Olav's men in the process. But still, did King Hrårek give up after that? After he was brought back and his plan failed many times. No, he was still a feisty old blind man who showed balls when everyone else around him was beaten into submission long ago and suffered far less than he did. Sometime later, King Hrårek was sitting next to King Olav in a church, actually, and they were speaking. King Hrårek says, well, I don't understand all this Christian religion, but it is some incredible stories. I would like to learn a bit more. How do you worship your Christ? And then King Olav shows him. Oh, you have to bow like this. You bow down to the altar, hands above his head, and he bows over. And at that very second, King Hrårek takes out his knife and stabs him, but he just grazes his shoulder because he was blind after all, and he was bowing over. So he just struck his shoulder. And then Olav runs away at that moment, and the Hrårek says, ah, the mighty King Olav, you run away from a blind man. So then Olav decides to ship Hrårek off to Iceland, where he lived out the rest of his days, and apparently he's the only king to be buried in Iceland. So that's about the end of the story. Why did I pick King Hrårek as my #1 greatest Viking of all time? And you guys too, if you have any others you'd like to mention, write them down in the comments. We'll see who else can get some good votes in there. Don't get me wrong, there are very many that I could have put on this #1 bravest list. There were many epic battles where few stood against many. I'm biased, of course, but I think the Norse had the bravest warrior culture that ever existed, especially the warriors from Trondheim, actually. I've done videos on that before. I could put dozens of Vikings on this list as bravest, but for me, like I said, it's brave when you stand up a few against many, but it's even braver to stand up when you are one, already beaten, humiliated, disabled, blinded, and you still keep your courage, even when everyone else around you has lost theirs. The cowards gave up fighting against the oppressive powers and are begging you, just join them, come on, the fight is over, we lost, just give up, do the same, join us. But one person stands up and keeps strong for what he knows is right, what everyone knows is right. King Hrårek was this person. That's why I put him as #1 bravest Viking of all time, because he stood up for battle. He could do all that stuff too when they were outnumbered, but he also survived the loss and still remained brave even though he was completely alone. And we could use a bit of this spirit today. This is why I tell you these stories, like I said, so we can learn things from it. There are always brave people like this, and it teaches us a lesson to never give up. Your people may have lost the war and have been beaten, but everyone can still show courage. Nobody can take that away, and if you are a believer in Norse spirituality, bravery is rewarded with good Heimskringla, and all good things will happen to you in this life or the next, even when all else is lost. That is what Heimskringla is about. But it doesn't ever need to get this bad if enough people stand up before it's too late, before the oppressive rulers get too much power. Just like before King Hrårek was blinded and had to show bravery as just one, him and the other kings, if they would have stood up a little bit earlier, they would have had a strong chance to beat King Olav. It's just like today, we would have a stronger chance to save ourselves if we stand up a bit earlier. We can all be brave together as a unit instead of being defeated and then just one very brave man has to show his courage. Today, it's not about Christianity being forced on people like it was in the Viking Age, but it's about other harmful ideas being forced on us today and rulers trying to destroy you if you don't comply. But if we stand up early enough, like many countries are doing, we don't ever have to let it get that bad like it was with King Hrårek. That is my rant for the day. Hope you enjoyed the history. Vi ses nästa gång.